Hey. Oh, happy day. So, everyone figured out Kant yet? Or at least wrap their head around all of that crazy free will stuff? Alright, I'm going to start off with a quote. Only in darkness are we revealed. Goodness is not goodness that seeks advantage. No, good is good in the final hour, in the deepest pit. Good is only good without hope, without witness, without reward, without even the promise of salvation. Virtue is only virtue in extremis. In extremis is a Latin phrase. Essentially what this quote is saying is the true test of character is what we do when there seems no hope, no reward, no salvation, no promise of heaven. Then you see what you do. You see who you are. It's how we behave in extremis, and this is the Latin. In extremis means essentially on the edge, at the end. At the end. On the edge, at the end. That's what defines us. So saying virtue is only virtue in extremis is saying, how do you act when you're on that edge I brought up towards the first couple of classes? How do you act standing on the edge, right? When you have that concept of anxiety, when you have that sense where you're on the edge and what Kierkegaard was saying, you could either jump off or get back on, any of those factors. How do you act? That's when your virtue is revealed. Who you are is revealed on edge. When that comes out of you. In extremis. So, we ended on Kant. Through Kantian reasoning itself. With really the only real moral choice for Kant is isolation. And I think here's where we need to pivot. Do you think you'd still come up with rules? Even in isolation. Have you come up with rules here? When we've been social distancing and doing all of that. Me, I started... well, I did this before the social distancing thing. It wasn't a New Year's resolution, but I started flossing every day, and I haven't missed a day. So that's one of those things. I could treat that like a moral edict, like a code. Exercising, keeping healthy, doing some sort of, you could have done ketosis, bro. You could have spent the whole time during this pandemic stuff in isolation, having a ketosis diet mixed with intermittent fasting, and that way, see, I like to make a ketosis burrito. I call it a bro-rito. Really what it is I make an egg, okay, and I scramble it, but I use the egg as the tortilla, and it's called a keto burrito or bro-rito. See, because there's no carbs in it, because I'm using just an actual egg as the tortilla to hold everything else. And then people are like, that's just called an omelet. And you're like, no, it's a keto burrito. Anyway, have you set rules for yourself in isolation? Do you think you would? Because even if the moral edict for Kant is isolation, that's the ultimate only real moral choice that it comes down to. How far removed from humanity would you have to be? And I said, what defines a human being? What truly makes you human that you would have to escape from? What's the stagger? What defines a human being? So you all began with watching that video. What's the difference between brokenness and incompletion, right? What defines a human being? Are those individuals in that gaining hearing for the first time video, are they human? Are they persons? I think we would all hopefully say yeah. I mean, well, I would hope we say yeah, but I think you could make a moral argument, and we'll get into that maybe they're not. But I feel like we would all just kind of sensitively at least say yes, they're human. So, what's the difference then between brokenness and incompletion? Posed that question. And I think generally when we say something is broken, I used to have like a mug that, well, I still have it, but I'm just not using it. Dang, why didn't I use that mug today? Anyway, what's the difference between broken and incomplete? If this was broken, this mug, if it was broken, technically the only thing that would define its brokenness necessarily has to constitute what its function or purpose is in the first place, right? So this mug, its purpose or function is made to hold liquid. So if it leaks, if it doesn't hold liquid, then we would say it's broken. But we would only say it's broken if it leaks and doesn't hold liquid if it originally held liquid and didn't leak in the first place, right? If right now it's fine, it doesn't drip, it's good. But if it stops doing that, we would say that's a broken mug because it's not fulfilling the function or its purpose that it was supposed to fulfill. So what we're looking at here is that definition of broken. Generally, broken means something was complete and then no longer serves its purpose or function. No longer serves what it's ought in ethics, what it should do. But an incomplete mug, well, I think an argument could be made that an incomplete mug still doesn't serve its purpose or function because it's incomplete. So an incomplete mug still won't hold liquid, or it may leak. But I think we agree that there's a difference between something being broken and something being incomplete. Broken, again, is that it was complete and no longer serves its function or purpose. Incomplete necessarily means it has yet to be completed, but both are not serving their purpose or function. Both don't do that. And I think the thing is with something being broken, we put a moral judgment on it, right? A thing is bad if it does not serve its purpose or function. If it is not serving its purpose or function, then bad. If it is serving its purpose and function, then good. Okay, so this is where the question of what defines incomplete comes in, because an incomplete object isn't serving its purpose or function, but it's not been completed yet to do so, right? I think we put a different understanding of that. We recognize a little bit of a difference in that, hey, a broken mug was serving its purpose and function because it was complete, and now it's no longer serving its purpose and function, so it is broken and therefore bad. An incomplete mug never achieves that complete status, and therefore is not it's still not serving its purpose and function, but we don't put that moral sort of it's bad on it, right? Differentiation. So the people in that video, are they broken or are they incomplete? What about you? Are you broken or are you incomplete? Do you think everything was good and then got messed up? Are you a broken human, or are you an incomplete human? Are you a broken person, or are you an incomplete person? Does it feel weird to talk about that? Does it feel weird to label those individuals in the video as either broken or incomplete? Does it feel weird to talk in that sense about a broken person? Right? Well, it depends on how you define a human, right? It depends on how you define a person. And if you define humanity as a whole as broken, well, then it entails that there was once a completion. And it's always interesting when this gets done, because I think that what we're looking at is, I agree, Braden. I think that there's something where trying to define them as broken would be a little bit like, what? It depends, right? It depends. We don't know their stories. And I think that that's where, if we're getting philosophical, it feels weird to talk about. But if we define a person as and a human being as somebody that has the sense of hearing, has the ability to hear, and yet they don't hear, then an incomplete human? But what if they did have hearing and they lost their hearing and then got it back? I mean, obviously not the baby, but like, are they broken and then being fixed? See, what we're looking at here is a definition of humanity that again impacts you, impacts how you see also yourself, and then how you see the world. And it's something very much rooted, I think, in a lot of religion, particularly the Judeo-Christian, like the three Abrahamic divines under Yahweh, that sense of with the narrative, things were good until they weren't good. Things were perfect, but again, like we talked about with Kant, but then we screwed it up. We broke. And now everything's broken because we did that. Well, if that's the case, I think again it would have to be something that we have to really deconstruct and think about on our own, as opposed to just continually hearing humanity's broken, right? So, first point would be something like, hey, if you even want to go with that narrative, humanity is broken, we were perfect in every way. God created us perfect in the garden, and then we messed up and broke ourselves and broke everything. Okay, well, if that's the case, if that's the narrative that you want to go with, here's the question. If you do not have the capacity to taste, if you have no taste buds, can you taste anything? If you do not have the ability to taste in the first place, we'd say no. So even if you've never tasted something, if you don't have that capacity, you could never taste. Same with, say, hearing. What if the world was created in this perfectly silent sort of a quiet place zone where there are no sounds? Can you hear if you don't have the capacity to hear? It's not just environment. It's if you don't have the ability and capacity to hear in the first place. And the answer is no, right? So if you are created without that ability to hear, then you can't hear. So here's the first problematic thing that comes up usually with that Judeo-Christian narrative of things were all good and then we screwed it up and we were broken. We broke humanity and we broke, the world. Okay, why? Well, because we sinned. We disobeyed God. Cool. Because we were made perfect. But most of the other belief in that belief system says that we have a sin nature. That's what causes us to sin. Whether it's the flesh or whatever. We have a sin nature. That's what Kant was saying. Our hamartia. It's just we erase that sort of label of Christianity and calling it sin, and we just say we're just this broken nature. Okay, cool. You believe in that. We have a sin nature. A sin nature is what causes us to sin. It's kind of like how all of the things of an ear causes us to hear. So, if we were created perfect, then we necessarily must have been created perfect with a sin nature. We must have been created with the capacity to sin in the first place. Otherwise, we wouldn't sin. There'd be no doing so. So part of that perfect creation, if you just go through that narrative, that perfect creation necessarily entailed something that would potentially, at least as a capacity sake wise, lead to our downfall. Wow, that's quite a start to that afternoon special. For access to the full video, or to get the full course, or just support me making new content that has everything or nothing to do with what you just watched, head on over to my Patreon, link in the bio. Join the community. I'd love to see you there and have you become a part of something bigger than me, but something where I can play my part just the same. See you there.